So here we are, Engine 1.5. I have got my dual layer set up here. As you know, the Prime system is, or the Prime players are dual layer. More on that later. But what we're going to do right now is just kind of show you a bit of a work 101 kind of vibe. So right now you can see here, I've got my Prime backup SD into my SD card reader. And let's have a look at the left-hand side here, because this is kind of a home base, if you will. So right up at the top here, we've got crates, and in crates we've got collections. Now, if you're bringing music into Engine Prime for the first time, this is where it's all going to go. So if you've got a stick or a drive, you just want to start from Engine Prime, sort of 101 from the very start, you're going to dump it all in here. Now, this is not the root directory drive. This is where Engine Prime library kind of sits, basically. So as you can see, I've made some crates here, different genres. But not only crates, if we go down one, we've got playlists as well. So there's a couple of playlists I've made here. Now you see these icons here. These are importing content from third-party libraries, basically. So what we have here is iTunes, Serato, and then we also have our record box and Tractor as well. And then down here, you'll see we have our root directory folder, basically. So what I'm going to do is go up to my collection and then start looking around some of these things I've prepared. Now let's go to my house promos folder and just throw something into the player. Cool. So cool, we've got some music going. Now here is where we can arrange our track. We can input cue points, so I can whiz this whole thing back. Pop in a cue point here, whiz it forward, and I can pop in a cue point there. Now of course I can rename these as well, and I can also go to loop and set loop points also. Now if I want to rename it, I simply do this. Go to hotkeys, and then right click, and I can rename this intro. Maybe not all with caps. Intro, and I can set a color code as well. Those color codes will be represented on your Denon system when you load the stick into the player. Same goes with loops as well. So I can pop in a loop point and rename those as well. Now, if I want to make playlists, now people do ask me a lot is, why do we have crates and playlists? Because you'd think that playlists would kind of be more the Serato and record box terminology. Well, no, playlists would be the Serato and the record box terminology, and then crates is more your Serato kind of language. Now, it's up to you really. It's whatever your workflow kind of suits you. I mean, I like crates because it kind of, it's being born when I was born, and it's one of those things where it's more like an old school kind of vibe, crates of records, etc. That's why it looks the way it does. There's no right or wrong to this. You can make a crate, you can make a playlist. So as you can see here, I've got chill playlist, little 4-deck remix playlist, and a tool room playlist here. It's completely up to you. If I want to import music from iTunes, all I do is update library. If it's, let's say this is the first time you're ever using it and you're still managing stuff in iTunes, you just update library. And here you go. So I have access to my iTunes playlist folders and playlists. So here you've got 90s music. I've got a hip hop playlist folder here. And then back we go. Now here's Serato, exactly the same thing. If you manage all your music in Serato, update library. I'll cancel that because it's quite a big library. And then all my Serato crates will be visible here. So I can go into Deep House, pop that in, and then start populating it with cue points so that when I bring it to a Prime 4, 2, Go, or SE6000, it's going to be good to go. Same goes for Tractor as well. Now you see, I've got nothing here in Tractor because I'm not a Tractor user. Record Box, this is the interesting one. We've got all my Record Box playlists on the left-hand side here. And then root directory. Now this is your root directory of your computer where your music is. It is not collections. That's not where it's found. It's found here. So this is Engine's database. This is your computer's database. If you do want to go deep diving for tracks, this is where you'll do it. So you see on my Mac here, Macintosh HD, and then music, which is a folder that Mac creates. See iTunes, GarageBand, all that kind of stuff. I can pull content in from there as well. And a quick one about the record box. If I go to record box and click update library, it'll ask me for an XML file, basically. Now the XML file, you'll find here, RB collection. And then in it goes, and the library updates. And then here, I can then choose to import any of those record box playlists into Engine as a playlist or a crate you see there. Or I can drag them just like that, basically. Now that's the kind of navigation 101, essentially. To turn on those libraries when you first boot up Engine, you'll see integration in the cog here. Now, a really cool thing with Engine Prime is if you get stuck, at the top right-hand corner here, you've got tooltips. Anything you hover the mouse over, it'll tell you exactly what it is. So if I go to my cog again, now see I've got all my library integration on, and this is a good one as well. Anyone who's on the MCX 8000, you'll see we've got support compatibility for that product. So if you turn that on, and if you want to prep in Engine Prime and then use it with the MCX 8000, that's where you're going to go. If we go to performance now, all of this information here, once you export your stick, that'll be read by your Prime system, be it the 2, the Go, the 6000, all of your playback and audio information. So let's come out of that now. And with the tooltip still on, you'll see wherever I scroll, it'll tell me exactly what it is. Grid edit controls, loop and beat controls, crates, playlists. If you're curious about anything, this will tell you what it is. Let's come off tooltips now. So obviously, now we've got our tracks in there. Let's say I've made a few playlists. Let's go with this P1 playlist here. Cool thing is, we can now start to edit beat grids. Now, with Engine 1.5, this is a brand new beat grid algorithm, essentially. So those of you who already use Engine Prime, what you'll find is you may have had to reanalyze your collection when you jump to 1.5. That's because it's a brand new algorithm. And the first place I went to when I first analysed this, reanalyse my collection, was obviously the hip-hop, because obviously if anyone's tried to beat grid hip-hop, especially from a particular era, it's not the funnest experience in the world. But I was really impressed with this. So let's try, actually, you know what, before we do that, everyone's used to seeing this view. So 4 on the floor house, gridded very nicely as it usually is. Another example there, throw this track in. Again, 4 on the floor, house, EDM, gridded very nicely. We don't have to do much work there. Now, if I throw this Tribe Called Quest track in, now this took some beat gridding back in the day, pre 1.5, and then when I refreshed this in 1.5, I was looking at it going, okay, cool, good so far. Skip forward, still on it. This is the brand new algorithm. The more we skip forward, it's still got it, all the way up to the end. So no work had to be done there at all. And again, this is the kind of power of the brand new algorithm, really. But let's give a slightly more tricky example. So let's throw in something from an album that I've probably spent the last 5 years of my life trying to beat grid. Okay, yeah. So DJ Shadow, Number Song. Let's give this one a go. So if we want to beat grid this, let's tap this icon here. So here's our kind of beat grid central 101. So obviously, first and foremost, you can see it hasn't caught that downbeat. So here's how we'd go about doing fine-tuning here. Now, it's very similar to other software in terms of your beat gridding, but this is how it works in Engine. So what we want to do there is pin the downbeat right there.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, break down, baby.
And then we can move it back there and say, hey, there's a downbeat there. Pin that. Now, of course, when we've pinned it, what that means is if I reset this and then go back to the start and then pin it, if I start to move this grid, you'll see how where I've pinned on the first cue doesn't move at all. So it's locked that beat grid straight there. Press reset again, pin it again. And I can keep doing this. If I skip through and see where there's a break here, right there. Let's pin that guy right there. And again, I can just keep going in and just be as surgical as I like. Now, the other controls here, you'll see we've got +2, or X2, and then -2. So what's that going to do? Well, that's going to double the value of the BPM. So you see we've jumped from 216, 108, and 54. Let's go back to 108. Now, these here, what these will do is move the beat grid in sort of 1 beat increments Now we can fine tune this as well, because if we go to our tooltips and then hold down there, shift right, so you shift the whole beat grid right. This can be used if your beat grid tempo is correct, but the downbeat marker is not correct. Hold shift for finer adjustments so we can be even more surgical with this. Let's get around to the end, see if we can find anything there. So already there's a couple that are just missing the offbeat there, or the offbeat, the downbeat, sorry. Pop that on, and let's move that along just a touch. See how we're looking at the end. Again, it's quite an involved song, so it's a good example. And then I can just say, hey, let's just move you forward a tiny bit. Oh, to the way. And then on and on and on and on and on. So that's kind of how we get surgical with the beat grid editing in 1.5. So if I just try one more track again. Okay, right, so let's go back to the start of that one. Now see, it's just off the downbeat there. And again, same rules apply. So let's move to the downbeat there, pin that. That's good, because you can see here in that bass line, it doesn't actually start on the one, it starts before it. So let's grab that on the downbeat. Turn this up a tiny bit. And then we'll wait for the drop. She gets mad when I don't say enough. She mad when I'm around, mad I'm out of town. She tell her. Looking very good. And again, if you want to just tear the whole thing apart and start again, we just hit reset. We can go from the start and then go more with a fine-tooth comb. That is how beat grid works in 1.5. Again, it's a brand new algorithm. So if you haven't updated to 1.5 yet, you'll need to reanalyze your whole library. And that's how you can take advantage of the new algorithm, which is real simple. I'll just quickly show you. So let's take quite a big crate here. Bold promos. So highlight all and then right click. And oh, actually, sorry, let's just take this one section here. Reanalyze tracks. Simple as that. And that is how that works, basically. Now, let's say we've been all surgical and we've, curated all of our crates and playlists. We've taken music in from iTunes, taken music in from Serato, from Rekordbox. We now go to the sync manager. And again, this is brand new for 1.5. So here, it's a simple case of I want that or I don't want that. So let's put the chill library back in. And yep, everything's looking good there. Crates, playlists. Now I've already exported this to my stick, my Prime backup, or this SD card in this case. So I won't do it right now. But you'll notice on 1.5, we've got the sync to the drive, and then this side here, which is, sync back to engine, basically. Now, if you make any cue point adjustments or loop adjustments and things of that nature on your hardware, once you plug this back into your PC or Mac, you can sync to engine, and all that cue point data you made on the hardware will be exported back into the actual library on 1.5. And remember, collection is where the kind of mothership is, basically. And this is our root folder. So all that metadata is coming into the collection, essentially. And now let's go back to our playlists. And let's have a look at Toolroom, because Toolroom, this playlist came directly from Rekordbox. And it was a case of popping Rekordbox on and then going Toolroom and then across. Just like that. I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. Put it back on Rekordbox, sorry. My engine playlists. And here we go. And you can see here, we've got beg your pardon. So if I go to this one here, you see I've got cue points. Very nice. So all the cue point data is exported from Rekordbox and playlist information as well. Now, anything else in Engine, we have, if we go to our cogs here, again, I've already covered this. All of this information we exported to your drive, and any library information we exported to the drive, which will then go into your Denon system. It'll ask you to load the profile, and then you'll say yes, and all of this will be synced up. So whether you choose to filter by sharps, flats, and Camelot, your BPM range of filtering, which I'll show you on the SE6000, your preference there will be exported, and all of that good stuff there. Okay, so I've got dual layer mode on there, but obviously we can turn that off. And now we're in single layer mode now. Of course, I can QWERTY search the library as well. So I can say, let's look for, there we go, within a collection or a playlist. And then when I go to my device panel, there's also an option on the right-hand side for, again, a large filtering 3-panel system here. And then also within Engine Prime, we've got our jobs list. Now, if you're exporting a large library, you can monitor this in real time. So as you're dropping your songs in, it's going to run all in real time. And if there's anything wrong in terms of like as a corrupt file or anything, it's going to tell you what that is. Now, when you do export a large library in, you might find that some tracks appear red. Now, when some tracks appear red, what that usually means is the location is missing, or the location is, you have actually moved that file and it's trying to find where that location of that file is. So I like to think I have a nice and tidy system here, but here we go. So that's looking where it shouldn't be, basically. Now, in this case, best thing you can do is to re-export those tracks in, basically, and then you should find them back in your main collection, and then they'll be ready to dump in a playlist or a crate. So that is what these red tracks mean, basically. Oh, there's some people waiting. Let me just put them back in.
Matt?
6 more to join, yep.
Can I just ask them? I know Ratsy said to the end, but I just wanted to jump in on something.
Yes, you can.
Just to explain red tracks again, because one of the big things that we get asked all the time is, why do I have red tracks? Well, a big thing to explain on here is if as Matt explained, you've got a folder which refers to your hard drive. So what Matt's doing, the collection that you can see on the left-hand side, that is basically his computer, yeah? And the devices that you can see in the right pane, that is basically his external drive, yeah? So all the people I've dealt with in terms of getting them to manage their library and get it correct, a lot of people were using external drives or multiple drives plugged in at once and then trying to bring all their music together. And that doesn't work, because the way that Engine looks at things, it locates where the kind of root folder is per song. Even when you drop all of those songs into a collection, it still has the root folder as the place where the original audio is. So the most important thing to do is, before you do anything, is move everything onto a drive in terms of physical music files. Forget the collection, because the collection on Engine Prime isn't the audio. It's just the metadata for the audio. And I think that's important to explain. And normally 99% of the time when you get a red track is because when you've transferred it to somewhere, you haven't actually transferred the track. You've only transferred the reference to the track. So you can actually, on your menu in the center there, Matt, you can pull down your directory and view that as one of your titles. So where your title and artist is an album, if you right click on there.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So you can show people, one of the key things to put on there is the drive. You can see it, but you need to scroll across, right?
So right down there, you got drive.
Yeah. So if you scroll across there now, and I haven't seen this, but you can see there, it is definitely originally on your Macintosh hard drive, but it will be in a folder somewhere that's not linked to that collection. So
indeed,
always use that. Always remember that the collection isn't your audio or your music files. It's just a reference to it. That's a really important thing. Sorry, I'll carry on.
Cheers, Neil. Thanks a lot. Cool. And of course, these panels can be reshaped as well for whatever preference you've got in terms of how they are looking. Okay, cool. So before we move on from 1.5, any questions in the chat, Ratsy?
Okay, we've had quite a few questions going on here. I'm just trying to double check the ones which are particular to Engine itself. There's a lot of Serato chat going on here. We might have to get onto that in a little bit. Right, if you edit a song title in Engine Prime 1.5, does that info transfer across to Engine OS when you sync the USB drive?
So that's 1.5, and then going into Engine OS, actually the player.
If you edit a song in Engine Prime 1.5, yeah, does that info transfer across to Engine OS when you sync the USB drive?
Yeah, any changes that are made here will will be represented in Engine OS as well. But what you can pull from Engine OS back to Prime is queue and loop information. That's the two big ones at the minute.
So it actually, the hardware actually talks back to the software when you export, when you take USB out and put it back in. Right, another one. Will there be pitch bend buttons added to Engine Prime, as they could be useful when testing mixes out?
Well, you've got with here, you can kind of be quite clever with the loops, not the loops, the dual layers here, as far as testing mix and so forth, because you do have the crossfader. You have a speed. Oh, let me just pull that down. There we go. So you can be kind of surgical with it and kind of clever with it. And of course, that speed can be adjusted with the range as well. So as far as actual pitch bending that you would see on the Denon, again, what I would say to anyone who has suggestions with the software, albeit the hardware, best place for that is obviously places like this, because you're talking directly with people from Denon, but our eyes on the forum, the Denon DJ forum, and the socials. In fact, the majority of things that came to Engine OS and Engine Prime 1.5 were directly from socials and forum requests. So our eyes are on there all the time. That is the best place to pop them. And any suggestions that get suggested tonight, they'll be logged with myself, Neil, and they'll be sent straight to the dev team.
Can I've just seen one question come up. I'm sorry, Rats, to jump in.
No, that's all right, mate.
How do you reconnect those red collection tracks? It's from Phil Cooling, to the physical file location. That's a really good question. What you've actually got to remember is when they're red, it basically means that the metadata's there, but it hasn't linked it to the file. So what it means, you'll find the file again on your hard drive, wherever it is, and just drop it back into your collection again, and then it knows where it is then. But you've got to remember to delete the old ones, obviously, otherwise they'll still sit there. And the trick with this is to go right back. And one of the big issues a lot of people had when I was speaking to them is they didn't approach, they kind of still wanted to hang on to their old software like Serato, Recordbox or whatever. And I had one guy who was perfectly like this, and he was getting so many problems because he had files everywhere. And I basically just got him to stop and transfer all of his files, his tracks, onto a drive on his internal computer. And then we just set up folders, because what he did, he put a hard drive in his Prime 4. And again, a lot of people are putting hard drives in their Prime 4 and thinking that is their main collection, but it's not. The hard drive in your Prime 4 is actually an external drive.
Yep.
If you're going to sync your Engine Prime to your Prime 4, you should remember that you're not syncing the internal Prime 4 drive to the Engine Prime. You need another drive in your computer that is the kind of main collection, if that makes sense. Don't treat your drive in your Prime 4 as your main drive, because then what happens when you unplug it, they'll all go red, because your computer that you've got Engine Prime running on isn't now connected to your Prime 4, so it won't see the files. So try and, when you're building, if you're a new person to Engine, drop all of your files as audio files. Now, I know this is hard work because people have them in folders as such, but I used to be a virtual DJ guy. And on Virtual DJ, what I did, I exported each of my folders as a proper export file, which actually exported the WAV files as well. And then I just dropped those individual folders into my collection and built my new library from that. And I've never had a problem since. But again, going back to answer that question, you'll just have to find where that file is and drop it back into the collection and re-drop it into whichever crate or playlist you choose to use, and remember to delete the other ones. Yeah.
Right, okay, Ratsy, let me just admit some more people in. There's still some people arriving.
No sweats, mate. We've got quite a few questions here, by the way.
But this is good. This is great. Yeah, I don't like quiet people.
Yeah, it is good, but we might actually end up being here all night at this rate.
What I will say, Ratsy, as well, and as I'm sure you'll agree, Neil, is that we're going to address as many questions as possible on and offline as well. We can get one with people.
Yeah. So any questions we don't answer tonight, we can obviously grab all this information and email people anyway. So
yeah. So let's just try and whiz through another couple here. DJ Paul T says, with Engine Prime, do you have to reanalyze your entire collection with each version upgrade, like you have to do with Serato, since the beat grids get messed up when upgrading versions? So Matt, you
Yeah.
said, is it you don't have to?
With
Like,
with 1.5 Ratsy, it was a case of that's a whole new beat grid algorithm that we
yeah,
created from the ground up. So the first thing on the list for users, whether if existing users, I should say, was to reanalyze all their tracks so they can benefit from that new beat grid.
yeah, okay. So
It's very much specific to 1.5.
so only really so until the algorithms change again, you shouldn't really have to.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
reanalyze.
let's say then the next update we say hey, we've tweaked it even more and it requires this. Then I'm sure we'll definitely advise something like that. But obviously, if you're new to 1.5 and you're throwing everything in for the first time, you won't have to do anything like that.
Okay, cool. Ryan Gardner, do you have to sync everything from Engine Prime onto the USB drive, or can you say sync everything to one drive and then a smaller amount of music to another drive? I'm guessing that you can spread your music out however you want, right?
You can absolutely. Yeah, if you've got multiple drives plugged in, you can see I've just got the SD there. You've got multiple drives plugged in, you can tick them into the appropriate drive, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as well, I'd say this is actually one quick thing. You see on the sync manager there, we've got the sync to engine. There's actually a tiny little shortcut for that as well. Just hidden away there. The little loop arrow there. That also does the same job. That's a nice little shortcut to that sync from engine back to Engine Prime. Engine OS, I should say.
Okay. Right. Right. A couple of kind of similar questions here, I think, which hopefully will answer a few people all at once. Do all tracks need to be in crates and playlists, or can you sync the entire collection?
Not at all. Like I said before, like crates and playlists. Obviously, the way we've kind of run it is we've got the option for both, and crates make more sense to a Serato user. Well, this is what I found talking to people, and playlists are more specific to, let's say, Record Box or something like that. I mean, me personally, I will like to. What I've done here on mine is on my collection, I've thrown in all of my tracks and arranged them into genres, basically. And then per kind of event or per kind of whatever gig it is, what I will then do is spread those out into playlist information, basically. So I can then say, new playlist, let's call this test. Then go back to my collection here, and let's just take this one a cappella here, Chaka Khan. Then go to playlists, and then drop on the test. Or I can do a multiple export if I hold shift and pull them in. So it's kind of whatever your workflow is. I know people who don't use playlists, and I know people who don't use crates. It's either one or the other. But the way I do it is I take advantage of both, essentially.
Right.
Like, for example, if I've got a certain thing I'm doing, like I found it good for mashups with the whole playlist thing. So I've grouped all that kind of stuff in the past into one playlist, rather than putting it into a crate where it's just kind of, in my case, it'd be in with a load of genres and kind of might get missing. So I've put those into playlist. So it's kind of whatever road you choose, really.
Yeah, for sure. Right, okay. This is quite a long one. Will re-importing Record Box collection overwrite changes made in Engine Prime? Or is there a way to only add new stuff from the Record Box import without touching the stuff already in the Engine Prime?
So if I go to my Record Box here, the way the process works is, I briefly touched on this earlier, if I go to update library, if I'm in Record Box, I need to export an XML file. Now this is Record Box 6, and this is below version 6. So there's my most recent, and I would go open, and then I would go. This would basically. I've just re-imported the whole new system there, so that's kind of just doubled up there. And if you want to update the library again, you just refresh the same thing. So it's dumping all that information that you've changed in Record Box into Engine Prime. So it's one kind of master dump, if you like. So it's taking all of those playlist information and then putting it back into Engine Prime. There's no kind of pick this playlist or pick that playlist. It does the whole XML export in one.
But there's an important thing to remember there, and that is what we're trying to do long term is get you working on our operating system and our way of working. So the whole idea of having like a Serato import or a Record Box is to get you away from using Record Box all of the time and to come onto the engine world and just use that. When you're putting music onto your computer or something, put it on through Engine Prime rather than through iTunes or through Serato or through so-and-so. and get used to using Engine Prime, and then you won't need to worry about, can I move something across from here? Because here's the problem. Obviously with Recordbox 6, it's clear Pioneer don't want any Recordbox users to want to be able to synchronize into Denon. So they're going to kind of do everything possible to stop that happening. We have a fantastic relationship with Serato, so they want to help us. But it's quite clear, it's obvious that the last thing they want is the ability for us to be able to do that. So, we can't promise there's not going to be problems, but what we're really trying to do, and what we would say is Engine is still in its infancy. It's had a massive upgrade to 1.5, and it's only the beginning. It really, really is. We've got a lot to do.